Hey, thanks for tuning in again to hear me ramble about Clay. So, I want to say this is kind of like a masterclass in what goes into actually validating data and how you validate data. When I worked for like five employee agencies, obviously we didn't really care about data hygiene at all. But I realized when we work with our like enterprise clients now, like worth north of like $10 billion, then it's like it's not acceptable to have like 1% of data just being like plain wrong in the Salesforce. It doesn't matter if it's like the reps typing it in wrong, if they get it from some info and it's wrong, even when they get it from like LinkedIn here, it's wrong all the time. So basically, I'm going to go over not the exact workflows, I can't show that, but basically the idea behind how we orchestrate, how we build tables, the details that go into validating the data, and yeah, basically how we orchestrate tables so they're client facing. So I literally just pulled like 30 companies here from the find companies function in Clay, and we're going to run through the table with some examples. Being this one, Loom's being a bit slow. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. So the inputs is just the company name, company domain, and the company LinkedIn. And as you can see, just from like this poll here, there's a lot of domains not being filled. So I'm running like a waterfall to find the domain. I'm starting with Clearbit, and Clearbit is absolutely horrible at this. I'm just doing it because it's free, by the way. So notice every time we do something like this, we have a validation. So I try to find the domain here. If it doesn't find it, I go to Claygen. If that doesn't find it, I go to Google search. And then we have the first valid, right? The first validation. We want to validate that this is the primary domain of the company, not just a domain. And we're not just going to accept the first find to be true, because there's some like issues with AI. It's pretty bad at like finding and validating in the same prompt. So sometimes it's a good idea to split it into like a finder and then a validator. And this is what we're doing here. And if this returns false, then once again, we go back and we say, go find the domain. However, it is not the one found by any of these, right? So it uses different methods to find it. And as you can see for this one, it's true. And that means we get the domain over here if it's not filled already. And then we have the master domain or master website. If you really want to get nitpicky, you can also just like validate each and every one of these, right? With that, we can now go and find the LinkedIn URL pre-validation, by the way, because a lot of the times it's just going to find the wrong LinkedIn URL. But yeah, if that is empty, this one runs. None of them are because we literally pulled it from LinkedIn. So we're going to have the LinkedIn profile, but they're not validated yet. So how do you validate a LinkedIn profile? The best thing to do is enrich it and then compare the data against the data you have and see, does this line up? Like, does the story align? Does it make sense that this LinkedIn profile could belong to this company? So what we do first is we go and find the company description, and we will need this later on. Um, Mind you, this workflow is not optimized for like credit saving, because the clients we have would rather just like spend a ton of credits. But if you need to like save credits, you can put like conditional formulas to do it more efficiently. What we do first is we enrich the company through the LinkedIn URL. If it's not found, we do it through the domain. And as you can see, for a lot of these, this is actually a great way to do it, because somehow it doesn't find it with LinkedIn URLs sometimes. And the idea of trying to validate it here is, as I told you, does the story align? So what we're checking, I'm checking here the name in here. Does that match exactly the name we have over here? If yes, we can call it validated. Or if the domain matches exactly, then we can also call it validated. If none of these are fulfilled, we go to what's called a descriptive match. We're like, okay, the companies are pretty similar, but they're not verbatim the same. So if the description is like literally just describing the same company, the same core functions, we're likely on the right company, right? Um, and it does that sometimes. You can see for this one, for example, the name or domain didn't match. We have some inputs missing, but without that, it's going to go to the descriptive match, right? So what happens if we don't validate on the first try? We're like, okay, we probably can't validate this profile. It's probably incorrect. So we go all the way over here. We have, is a descriptive match? If no, we go to, is momentary LinkedIn validated? That means, are any one of these checked? Because any one of these means it's a validated profile, right? If we don't have that, then again, we go to the second finder. We are like, okay, we tried using the LinkedIn URL here. This is not correct. Go and find a new one. Then we run the status. By the way, this is a super nice trick. It's not in any of Clay's documentations, but if you use Clay get cell status, you can get like success, error, run condition not met. You can sometimes get error, and you can make like a lot more conditional logic around that if you only wanted to run when it errors out or like times out or something like that. Really good tip. And we use that basically. So if this is success, it has run successfully, but it's none found, then we run the next step here, which is like the ICP's LinkedIn URL finder. Again, we find a new LinkedIn URL and we go to validate this again. And as you can see, now we get a domain match, right? For this one, we still don't get a match. So we also think that this one is invalid. That means we can now get the new pre-merge, but validate the LinkedIn URL over here. And then lastly, we literally just merge everything. And you can see we filter out like a LinkedIn URL here, which would probably be a bad one. And we found an extra one here. And that means you can also extract all of this nice data, right? And just map it correctly. So that's basically what goes into just validating a LinkedIn profile. And that's what it takes to have like a really, really clean CRM in the end and have data you can actually be able to trust. This is especially useful for clients that come to you and want to like replace ZoomInfo, for example. Then you're going to need to have systems like this in place. And a bonus, like if you're just owning Clay, that's completely fine. What we do when we have it like kind of client facing, you can see what goes into like color coding, all of these, naming, grouping everything. So it's like super easy to follow. That's just a smaller detail that you can keep looking at. But yeah, there's nothing super technical about this table. But anyway, I think it's super interesting, like just the sheer amount of like detail that goes into just validating a LinkedIn profile and a domain, right? So yeah, thanks for listening to me ramble for about 7 minutes, and I hope it's useful.